Hello, healers. My name is Ben, and this is the Moss Report. I'm very proud to announce a number of things that we've been working on for a few years here at the Moss Report. And we want to share those things with you. And in a way, I've been fighting with my own sort of nervousness about wanting to launch all of these exciting new developments at the Moss Report. But I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to just let you know about everything that we've been working on. So first and foremost is my father's probably most important work ever, and maybe one of the most important books, if I dare be that immodest, ever written. And that relates to how to help yourself fight cancer naturally. We've called this book The Moss Method. The Moss Method is essentially a compilation of 50 years worth of research into less toxic, more natural ways to fight cancer, and largely through nutritional means. So I won't go into all of the details of everything in the book, but we focus on three major topics. One is the relationship between the metabolism and health. The other is how to help support an active immune system. And the other is the battle to fight and kill cancer stem cells in the body. So there's a lot there, including all of the ways, as I mentioned, nutritionally to help support those goals, including recipes and other ways to get those good cancer-fighting properties into the body and to make the most use of them. So I highly recommend that you click the link in the description below to learn more about that book and get it. It's on paperback, hardcover, and Kindle format on Amazon. So in addition to that, basically, if you have been following us for some time, you may know that we used to have what we called the Moss Reports. And the Moss Reports were, most cases, 500 plus page long volumes on the different major types of cancer. And essentially what we did was we separated out the two sections, the natural ways to help fight cancer into the Moss Method book. And for those of you who are trying to understand the pros and cons of conventional treatment, we've included those parts of that information in the Moss Report treatment guides. And we produced 51 brand new Moss Report treatment guides on all of the different major types of cancer, and they look like this. And these are also available on Amazon, but also on the Moss Report store, which we'll link to as well. So you can get them in PDF downloads, Kindle, and paperback, as you see here. And there are, as I mentioned, 51 of those. Also, we produced the Compendium Series, which is actually 2 volumes of all 51 different types of diagnoses in 2 large volumes, mostly intended to be serving the practitioners who want to be helping their patients to understand their treatment options and have a better understanding of what those treatment options are, pros and cons. And there are as many pros as cons. In some cases, maybe some more cons than pros. But if you're trying to understand what those are and make sense of the marketing language that the big pharma uses to promote their treatments and weigh those treatments in the balance of good decision-making, well-informed decision-making, the Moss Report treatment guides are a great place to start to get to know what those options are. So that's been a lot. That already by itself is quite a bit, but there's even more, and I'm going to get into that now. So you may have already heard of another publication called Townsend Letter. Townsend Letter sort of grew up alongside the Moss Report as the examiner of alternative medicine, but medicine more broadly, whereas the Moss Report focuses mostly on cancer, almost entirely so. The Townsend Letter has focused on all aspects of health, and there's quite a lot there. That magazine, which was a printed magazine for over 40 years, was published and run by a gentleman named Dr. Jonathan Collin. And when Dr. Collin decided to retire, he essentially turned to us and asked that we take on management of the publication in order to keep it going. And so one of the things that I've been doing over the last couple of years has been to take ownership of Townsend Letter, reproduce at least the last 12 years worth of articles. There's about 4,500 articles into an online magazine format, and work with some exciting new authors and many of our old, very well-studied, researched articles and their writers to continue to produce great new content on all aspects of health. So we hope that you'll go and visit townsendletter.com as well to learn more about that publication and hopefully subscribe to that as well. The Moss Report website, as you may already know, is a compendium essentially of all of my dad's writings for the past 50 years, including the earliest newsletters dating back to the 70s, all the way through the Cancer Chronicles, and all of the articles that he wrote, many of which were done for Townsend Letter. And essentially, we have something in the neighborhood of about 1,200 different articles by Dr. Ralph Moss, and a series of videos called the Help Yourself Heal video series, as well as the Doctors and Clinics section of the website, which really chronicles the integrative oncology practices around the world, largely in Mexico and also in Germany. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So in addition to those things, one of the things that came up as a part of having produced last season's podcast was the conversation that I had with my dad about mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms specifically. And he has long felt that medicinal mushrooms are an integral part in a health program for anyone trying to keep themselves healthy and fight disease. And I relate in that podcast part of my own journey around the subject of mushrooms, in that that was my first assignment, if you will, when I was in my teens, working for the Moss Report. And we had some scientists who had come over from Japan to share with us the interesting developments in the scientific research around maitake before maitake mushrooms ever even arrived in the market here in the United States. And my job was to, do the audio and video recording of that. And so I always had an interest in that. And something came up in that podcast that was deeply concerning for me, which was when my dad was saying that there is quite a big problem in the world of mushroom supplements. And that is that in many cases, the mushroom supplements that are out there contain little, if any, actual mushroom compounds. Maybe they contain the mycelium or the grain that the mushroom is grown on, or even the dirt in some cases. And the origins of those mushrooms and so forth can be untraceable. And therefore, people who are trying to get those mushrooms into their diet to help them boost their health can oftentimes be very let down by the lack of any kind of efficacy that they might find in something that contains, in some cases, very little of the mushroom that they want to get. So when I talk to cancer patients, which is something that I do as part of my consultation practice, I was very concerned that I would suggest to people, oh, you might want to consider getting some mushrooms in your diet, and here's what we think is, the way to do that through foods. And they say, oh, I take this supplement or that supplement. And then the question would always arise for me, oh, well, I don't know that supplement, and I don't know where they get their mushrooms, and I don't know how much mushrooms there are in there, and are there even any benefits to that particular product or this one? Very difficult to know. And so when the opportunity came up for me to go to the 12th International Medicinal Mushroom Conference, which you may recall, I made some posts on the Moss Report about that experience of being there, I was able to make contact with some very interesting, dedicated professionals in the mushroom business. Some people who grow mushrooms, some people who extract mushrooms, and some people who put them all together as a mushroom product. And at that conference, we were very fortunate to be able to form an alliance with a company that's very well known in Europe as being one of the leading producers of some high quality, really high quality mushroom extract products. The name of that company is Mycolife, Mycolife Roma. That's the company. And so we worked out a deal where essentially they would produce a mushroom product in concert with us, based on my father's understanding of which mushrooms have the highest value for health. And so that's what we did. We came up with the formula, my dad did, and I worked with that company, Mycolife Roma, to form a new company called mycolife.us. And together we've produced a new product. This is called the Moss Method Mushroom Formula. Now, this product is, as far as I know, the best quality mushroom extract in the world. And we're selling it as such, the best mushroom extract in the world. And I think we can say that because it has the highest potency, the most mushrooms, the best bioavailability, the best extraction method that I'm able to actually find. And the plan is for me to actually visit with these folks who are growing the mushrooms, extracting the mushrooms, and putting them together in the extract. But I've been in touch with these folks. I know what they're doing, and I'm really looking forward to visiting them in person and sharing that experience with you. But meanwhile, I've had a big learning curve myself in terms of understanding the ins and outs of importing products and setting up a store to sell a physical product, which is absolutely brand new for the Moss Report. You know, we've never really been into product placement or this type of thing, and we wouldn't be except for this reason, which is that we really feel that mushroom products have tremendous value for health, and that unfortunately we didn't feel confident about telling people which mushroom product to get, not being able to vet their origins. And in this case, this product really, I'll let you guys go to the actual website and read more about it, but essentially it's got the highest concentration of the mushroom compounds that is possibly able to be provided, the best bioavailability, as I've said, through its unique formulation, and it's delicious. I think that may be secondary for many people, but it's not a capsule. You don't have to take handfuls of capsules to get these good compounds in you. You can add it to your coffee or tea, and I'll stop the sales pitch there because this isn't meant to be that. This is meant to be just the update to everything that we've been up to, and that was one part of my journey. And since I was in the business of trying to publish all of my dad's writings that he's produced in the Moss Report website and the new book, and updating all of the Moss Report treatment guides, I decided I might as well go the extra mile and put his other books back into publication as well. So his, I'm going to just pull this out here, okay? So there's quite a few here. I'm just going to kind of run through them really quickly. All right, so this one is Free Radical, Albert St. Georgi and the Battle Over Vitamin C. Albert St. Georgi, as you may know, was the gentleman who discovered vitamin C, isolated it as a compound, and the things that he went through in order to be able to publish and study that compound. It's got some interesting notes from Nobel Prize winners like Linus Pauling and James Watson and Ilya Prigogine. This is the book to read if you want to know about the origins of vitamin C and its relationship to fighting disease and this very interesting life story. The biography of Albert St. Georgi really reads like a fascinating novel. Another book that we put back into publication is Questioning Chemotherapy. This was kind of the seminal book that my dad produced that was so influential in many people's cancer journeys to understand the nature of chemotherapy and its pros and cons more generally. His most recent book before the Moss Method was Cancer Incorporated, the inside story of the corruption, greed, and lies of Big Pharma. That tells its own story right there. Doctored Results, which is the suppression of at Sloan Kettering for cancer research. I probably will have to bleep out the word troll. I'm going to probably bleep that out again because this was such a controversial topic that at this point and this day and age right now, it still can be censored because of even the mention of that word, say the L word, is still enough to get you flagged in social media and on YouTube and everything else. So that one is a great book and one of the most best-selling books by my dad. This one's a very interesting biography about John Beard, cancer enzymes and trophoblasts. Short book on biography. Herbs Against Cancer, back in publication, History and Controversy. This one goes into detail about some different controversial topics that relate to herbs and cancer. Another one, Antioxidants Against Cancer, another great book. Coley's Toxins, The Sum of Our Hope, which is another biography about William B. Coley, who was the discoverer of immunotherapy and how it was essentially brought into the world, the history of that, which if you know our channel, you may already know we chronicled his life to some degree in our film, Immunotherapy, The Battle Within, which is available free to watch on YouTube. Dr. Moss's famous book, The Cancer Industry. This one is very well known. It's all about the different ways in which the cancer business has developed, preferentially, getting funded for proprietary, patentable medicines over natural treatments and so forth. And that's it. Those are the books that we put back into publication. But this is his magnum opus right here, The Moss Method. And it's not just for people who are dealing with a diagnosis, it's for everyone who wants to be able to prevent getting cancer and also prevent a recurrence of cancer. And of course, if you're dealing with a diagnosis, it's there for you to understand where Dr. Moss has found the best science to support the natural healing process in the body and naturally ways to fight cancer. So getting back to the cancer trip that I mentioned, basically, in 2022, late 2022, we started to plan a trip for us to go back and visit the clinics that my dad started visiting back in the 1970s, even when he was working at Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. He kind of went rogue, if you will, while he was out at a conference in California in the 70s, and he went out and visited some of these early clinics that had popped up in Mexico to get an idea of what they were doing and get a better understanding of what integrative oncology looked like abroad and, well, in Mexico at that time. And then, of course, his research extended to exploring what integrative oncology looks like around the world, in Germany primarily. And so, following in his footsteps, which I'm doing my best to try to do, my wife Elizabeth and I decided we were going to go back and revisit some of these clinics to see how they're doing, see if they're still there, connect with some old friends and colleagues and people we'd met along the way, and find out what's new in that world and try to get a clear picture of what integrative oncology in Mexico and Germany really look like. So we visited a dozen different clinics down in Mexico. And we also went then subsequently to Europe to visit another dozen clinics in and around Germany. So those trips have been absolutely fascinating. And along the way, what I was able to do was capture video footage, both of myself and my wife and our tours of these facilities and talking with the clinicians and seeing what their different protocols are, but also to connect the lead oncologists or clinic directors with Dr. Moss to talk about, the deep dive into their scientific philosophy and the different protocols that they have in place, and to get a better picture of how they choose to try to heal cancer at their various clinics around the world. So when I tell you that I've been busy, I certainly am not trying to, I'm not kidding. I've been super busy with all of the travels and the documenting of those trips. And of course, in the same time, producing the content and the articles and the podcast and the magazine, Townsend Letter, and all of that. So I've had I'm sorry to say, a little bit of I've been a little overwhelmed, let's just say, by how much I have had to announce about what we've been doing, to the extent that I felt like I didn't want to announce any of it. So I hope that I haven't been too long-winded with all of this, and that you'll just follow along and hopefully encourage us by continuing to subscribe to the Moss Report, to the Townsend Letter, to our YouTube channel, to our podcast, and continue to encourage us to produce the type of content that we're out here trying to get, which is truly an objective look at the natural ways and the less toxic ways to help fight this dreaded disease and to find a path to health more generally. So that's the update. Thanks for listening, watching, subscribing, sharing, and being a part of the Moss Report. For now, I'm Ben Moss. How are you healing today?